Behind the headlines and cameras, there's a side of Barron Trump that most people never see. Stories of quiet compassion, selfless actions, and powerful moments of kindness that have touched lives in ways no one expected. Today, we're sharing the most heartwarming acts of kindness from Barron Trump. Stories that will move you to tears and restore your faith in humanity. Growing up in the public eye isn't easy. From a young age, Barron Trump has faced the weight of expectations, headlines, and opinions from people who have never even met him. But what many don't know is that behind the name and the fame is a young man with a heart for others. Whether it's helping strangers in need, supporting classmates, or offering unexpected acts of generosity, Barron has quietly shown time and time again that kindness speaks louder than words. These are not the stories you'll see in tabloids or news broadcasts. These are the moments that happened without cameras, moments of pure humanity that remind us of the power of compassion. Today, we'll share some of Barron Trump's most touching acts of kindness. Get ready to be inspired. The first story takes place during Barron's middle school years. At the time, Barron was a student at a private school where appearances often masked deeper struggles. There was one boy in his class, David, who had become the target of constant bullying. David was shy, often wearing worn-out clothes and sitting alone at lunch. The bullying wasn't always loud. Sometimes it came in the form of whispers, laughs, or simply ignoring him altogether. But the pain it caused was clear. One day, Barron noticed David eating lunch alone again, his head down as kids whispered from across the cafeteria. Instead of staying with his usual group, Barron picked up his tray, walked across the room, and sat down beside David. "Hey," Barron said, smiling faintly. "Is it okay if I sit here?" David blinked, looking up in shock. Sure," he mumbled. For the rest of the lunch period, Barron talked with David like they'd been friends for years. He asked about David's favorite movies, video games, and hobbies, showing genuine interest in a boy everyone else had ignored. The next day, Barron sat with David again. Then the day after that. Slowly, other classmates began joining the table, realizing that if Barron could sit with David, so could they. Years later, David shared the story online, saying, "Barron didn't have to do what he did, but he saw me when no one else did. He changed everything for me." This simple act of kindness didn't require fanfare or recognition, but to David, it meant the world. The second story takes us to a children's hospital in New York City. Barron, then 16, had heard about a little girl named Lily who was battling leukemia. Lily was a huge fan of soccer, Barron's favorite sport as well, and had spent weeks in the hospital undergoing difficult treatments. Wanting to do something special, Barron quietly reached out to the hospital staff and asked if he could visit Lily. There were no cameras, no press, just Barron, a few soccer gifts, and a handwritten card. When he walked into Lily's hospital room, her eyes lit up with joy. "Are you Barron Trump?" she whispered, clutching her teddy bear. Barron smiled warmly and nodded. "Yeah, I heard you're a soccer fan, so I brought you some cool stuff." He handed her a signed soccer ball, a jersey from her favorite team, and a card that read, "You're stronger than you know. Keep fighting, Lily. I believe in you." For the next hour, Barron sat with Lily, talking about soccer, her favorite teams, and her dreams of playing once she got better. Her parents watched from the corner of the room, tears streaming down their faces as they saw their daughter smile for the first time in weeks. When Barron finally stood up to leave, Lily hugged the soccer ball tightly and whispered, "Thank you. You made my day." Months later, Lily's parents shared the story, saying, "He didn't have to come. He didn't have to care, but he did, and it gave Lily hope." It was a quiet gesture, but it brought light to a little girl's darkest days. The third story happened on a cold winter afternoon in Washington, D.C. Barron, now 18, was walking through a city park when he noticed an elderly homeless man sitting on a bench. The man was wrapped in thin blankets, his hands shaking from the cold as he tried to sip from a paper cup of coffee. Most people walked past, barely sparing him a glance, but Barron stopped. He crossed the park, approached the man, and asked softly, "Sir, are you okay?" The man looked up, surprised that someone had even noticed him. "I'm just trying to stay warm," he muttered. Barron nodded and quickly made his way to a nearby cafe. Minutes later, he returned with 2 steaming cups of coffee, a warm sandwich, and a thick winter coat he had purchased at a nearby store. "Here," Barron said, kneeling down and handing the man the coat. "This should help you stay warm." The man stared at the coat, tears welling in his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Barron smiled softly. "Because everyone deserves a little kindness." As Barron walked away, the man whispered, "God bless you, young man." A bystander who had witnessed the exchange shared the story online that evening. The post read, "I just saw Barron Trump quietly help a homeless man today. No cameras, no crowd, just pure kindness. This world needs more people like him." The story went viral, with thousands praising Barron's selflessness and reminding others that compassion is free. These stories of Barron Trump's acts of kindness remind us that true compassion doesn't require headlines or recognition. Whether it's helping a bullied classmate, bringing hope to a sick child, or supporting someone in need, Barron has shown that kindness speaks volumes. Waitress serves Barron Trump, sees note on check, and bursts into tears. Imagine working a long shift, exhausted and overwhelmed, when a customer leaves something on their check that completely changes your life. That's exactly what happened to one waitress after serving Barron Trump. What he left behind brought her to tears, and this story will touch your heart. It was a quiet Tuesday evening at a small family-owned diner on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. The lights were dim, the hum of conversation was soft, and the faint sound of a jukebox played in the background. Working the evening shift that day was 28-year-old Vanessa, a waitress who had been at the diner for years. A single mother working 2 jobs to support her 5-year-old daughter. Vanessa was no stranger to long nights, sore feet, and the struggle to make ends meet. Her co-workers often admired her strength, her ability to greet every customer with a warm smile, no matter how tired she was. But behind her smile was a woman carrying the weight of overdue bills, doctor's visits for her daughter, and the constant fear of falling behind. Around 7 p.m., the diner door chimed, and in walked a tall, well-dressed young man. Vanessa greeted him with her usual cheerful tone. "Welcome, sit anywhere you'd like." The young man chose a quiet booth near the back. He looked familiar, like someone she had seen on TV before, but Vanessa didn't dwell on it. To her, he was just another customer, and she treated him like anyone else. "Hi, I'm Vanessa. Can I get you something to drink to start?" "Water's fine," the young man said with a smile. "And I'll just have the turkey club sandwich." "You got it," Vanessa replied, jotting it down. As she walked to the kitchen, one of her co-workers leaned over and whispered, "Do you know who that is? That's Barron Trump." Vanessa's eyes widened for a moment, but she shrugged it off. "He's just another customer," she said softly. "I'll treat him like I do everyone else." And that's exactly what she did. Throughout the meal, Vanessa stopped by Barron's table with her usual warmth. "How's everything tasting?" she asked. "Perfect, thank you," Barron replied sincerely. He noticed how hard Vanessa was working, moving from table to table, clearing plates, and always smiling despite how tired she looked. He saw her kneeling down to talk kindly to an older couple, making jokes to cheer up a little boy, and ensuring everyone in the diner felt welcome. When Vanessa brought him the check, Barron thanked her again. "You've been wonderful. I appreciate it." Vanessa smiled brightly. "It's my pleasure. Come back anytime." With that, she returned to the counter, ready to clean up the last few tables. As she wiped down a surface, she didn't notice Barron quietly pulling out a pen and writing on the check. He glanced toward the counter one last time, smiled softly, and walked out of the diner without a fuss. A few minutes later, Vanessa grabbed his bill from the table and froze. Her eyes widened as she read the note scrawled across the receipt and stared at the number written next to it. At the top of the check, Barron had written, "For your kindness and hard work, I hope this helps. Never stop smiling. You make the world a better place." Underneath the $25 hour meal total, Barron had left a tip, $5,000. Vanessa's hands trembled as she read the number again and again, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. "This can't be real," she whispered. Her co-workers noticed her standing still and hurried over. "Vanessa, are you okay?" Tears began streaming down her face as she handed them the check. "He left $5,000. And this note." The room fell silent as everyone stared at the receipt. One of the cooks let out a low whistle. "That's incredible. He really did that?" Vanessa nodded, tears still falling as she clutched the bill to her chest. For her, this wasn't just money. It was hope. It was groceries for her daughter, rent for the next few months, and the relief she so desperately needed. "I've worked here for years," she whispered, "and I've never had someone do something like this." Word of Barron's gesture quickly spread through the diner. Customers who had witnessed the moment shared it online, and within hours, the story went viral. The next morning, Vanessa woke up to find her phone flooded with messages. Friends, family, and strangers had all seen the story of Barron Trump's act of kindness. The post had been shared thousands of times, with people praising both Barron's generosity and Vanessa's hard work. News outlets picked up the story, calling it a remarkable act of compassion, and highlighting how a small moment of kindness can change someone's life. Reporters asked Vanessa how she felt about the tip. "It wasn't just about the money," she explained tearfully. "It was about the note. He saw me. He saw how hard I work. Most days you feel invisible in this job, but he reminded me that kindness matters." When Barron was later asked about his gesture, his response was simple. "I saw someone who deserved to be appreciated. She reminded me that the people who work the hardest are often the ones who get noticed the least." His words struck a chord with people everywhere. Thousands shared their own stories of hardworking waiters, cashiers, and workers who had changed their days with simple acts of kindness. Thanks to Barron's generosity, Vanessa was able to catch up on her bills, buy her daughter new clothes, and start a small savings account for emergencies. But the moment meant more than just financial relief. It restored her hope. "There's so much good in the world," Vanessa said in an interview. "Barron reminded me of that. I'll never forget what he did." For Barron, the moment was proof of what he had always believed, that kindness doesn't need an audience, and sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact. To this day, Vanessa keeps the note Barron wrote pinned on her fridge. Whenever she feels overwhelmed, she reads it to remind herself that her hard work and kindness matter. "He changed my life," she says, "not just because of what he gave me, but because of what he saw in me." This heartwarming story is a reminder of the power of generosity and kindness. Have you ever experienced a moment where someone's small gesture changed your life? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread kindness wherever you go. Sometimes it's the smallest encounters that leave the biggest impact. When a homeless man asked Barron Trump for just $1, no one could have predicted what happened next. What Barron did in response was so unexpected it left everyone stunned, and the story will restore your faith in humanity. It was a cold, gray afternoon in downtown New York City. The streets were busy as cars honked and people rushed to escape the biting wind. Along a quiet side street, a homeless man named James sat hunched over on the corner of a building, clutching a worn cardboard sign that read, "Hungry, please help, anything counts." James was in his early 60s, with weathered skin and tired eyes that spoke of years of hardship. His clothes were torn, his hat threadbare, and his hands trembled from the cold as he extended an empty cup, hoping for a kind soul to drop in a few coins. Despite the rush of people passing by, most ignored him. Some avoided eye contact, others shook their heads, and a few muttered under their breath. James sighed deeply, his hope fading as the minutes ticked by. Around this time, a black car pulled up nearby, and out stepped a tall young man in a crisp navy coat, Barron Trump. He had been on his way to meet a family friend when he noticed James sitting alone on the sidewalk. The man's defeated posture and quiet request for help struck a chord with him. As Barron walked past, James looked up, his voice weak but hopeful. "Excuse me, young man," he called out. "Can you spare $1?" Barron paused mid-step, turning to face James. For a moment, the two locked eyes, the wealthy young man and the struggling older gentleman. No one knew what would happen next, but what Barron did left the entire street in shock. Barron approached James slowly, his expression calm and thoughtful. "What's your name, sir?" Barron asked softly. James blinked, surprised that someone was even speaking to him. "I'm James," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to bother you. I just need $1 for something to eat." Barron crouched down so they were at eye level. "James, you're not bothering me at all." By now, a few passers-by had stopped to watch, curious about what was happening. To them, Barron could have easily ignored James like so many others did. But instead, Barron reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. At first, James thought Barron was simply grabbing a dollar bill. But instead, Barron pulled out a crisp $100 bill and handed it to him. "Here," Barron said gently, placing the bill in James's trembling hand. "Get yourself something warm to eat." James stared at the money in disbelief. Are you serious?" he stammered, his voice breaking. Barron smiled faintly. "I hope this helps you out." Tears filled James's eyes as he clutched the bill tightly. "Thank you. Thank you so much. You don't know what this means to me." By this point, the small crowd that had gathered was silent, watching the exchange with awe. But Barron wasn't done yet. "James," Barron continued, his voice steady, "how long have you been out here?" James wiped at his eyes, his voice shaking as he replied, "A couple of years now. I lost my job, then my home. One thing led to another. I just never managed to get back on my feet." Barron nodded, listening intently. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" James shook his head. "I've been sleeping at the shelter, but it's full most nights." Without hesitating, Barron stood up and pulled out his phone. James watched, confused, as Barron made a quiet call. A few minutes later, a nearby cafe manager walked out to meet them. "This man is going to take care of you for now," Barron explained to James. "He's going to get you a hot meal and something warm to drink." James looked at Barron, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this for me?" Barron smiled softly, his tone kind and sincere. "Because everyone deserves kindness. No one should have to go through what you're going through alone." James broke down, tears streaming down his cheeks as he whispered, "You're an angel. Thank you." Barron gently patted James on the shoulder before turning to leave. But before he did, he said one final thing. "James, don't lose hope. Things will get better." The small crowd that had gathered began clapping softly, touched by what they had witnessed. For James, it wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen, being cared for, and being reminded that people still had compassion. Later that evening, the cafe manager shared the story on social media, describing how Barron Trump had quietly stopped to help a homeless man without asking for recognition or attention. The post read, "Today, I saw a young man change someone's life. Barron Trump didn't just give money. He gave time, kindness, and hope. The world needs more of this." Within hours, the story went viral. Thousands of people shared it, praising Barron's generosity and humility. Comments flooded in from people who were deeply moved. "This brought me to tears. Barron Trump has a heart of gold. What a reminder to always stop and help others." The next day, James's story appeared on local news stations. With the help Barron had given him, James was able to eat, rest, and begin working with local shelters to find long-term support. When reporters asked Barron about the moment, his response was simple. "I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just treated James the way I'd want someone to treat me if I were in his shoes." Those words struck a chord with people everywhere. In a world where kindness can feel rare, Barron's actions were a powerful reminder of what it means to be human. James later shared how that moment changed his life. "I had lost hope before he stopped for me. I thought I didn't matter, but Barron made me feel seen. That day gave me the strength to keep going." For Barron, it was never about the attention. It was about doing what was right. That simple act of kindness created ripples that touched the hearts of millions and reminded us all of an important truth. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. This story reminds us that even the smallest gestures can make a world of difference. Have you ever witnessed a moment of unexpected kindness that changed someone's life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread kindness wherever you go.